Hello, everyone. We are Group 3, and our project is based on around smart lock systems for homes. We chose to analyze a smart lock system because it's one of the clearest examples of cybersecurity blending directly into real life. This isn't just protecting data, it's protecting people's homes. Our system connects a physical lock to a mobile app and a cloud platform, which creates convenience but also introduces real security and privacy risks. So our project focuses on understanding how the system works, where it's vulnerable, and what the impact would be if any part of it failed. Each of us will walk through a different part of that analysis, from risk scoring to mitigation strategies, compliance requirements, and the legal and ethical responsibilities that come with building technology people rely on for their safety. For our first slide, we're going to be starting off with Elvis.
All right, thank you. So this is basically a system overview. Basically, as you might know, smart locks are becoming more common and popular in modern homes. It's a convenient way of securing your home and basically eliminating the hassle of carrying house keys that can be misplaced at times. So basically, smart locks are uh, just simple devices that you can attach to, for example, your door, and you can control it through a mobile app on your smartphone. So you can remotely lock, unlock, without having to physically be there. You can give access to somebody else. Say you hire a some worker, a plumber, or a technician for some reason. You can give them temporary access. That way, you can monitor your house, but not necessarily have to miss work, for example. So yeah, so there's a lot of conveniences and benefits to having that. But on the flip side to that, on the other side of the coin, there's also threats and that are associated with it. So things like hackers, they can access your that smart lock through any little flaw in your Wi-Fi. They can hack into that. They can open your house and basically now your house is vulnerable, which is kind of like defeats the purpose of the whole security part of it. So the primary focus on what we did on our presentation is to find out what causes those attacks and how to prevent them. And the goal is to make our home safer and connected overall. So I'll pass it over to Justin for threat actors and attack vectors.
I'm going to pull up his video because he is remotely out of town.
Justin, and I'm going to be going over the threat actor and attack vectors, as well as the stride threat categories. When we started modeling this system, we first looked at who would realistically want to attack a smart lock and how they might do it. On the remote side, we have external hackers and opportunistic attackers who scan the internet for poorly secured IoT systems. These attackers are usually looking for weak passwords, exposed APIs, or outdated firmware. There's also the insider risk, which can be someone with legitimate access, such as a vendor, employee, or contractor, who abuses elevated permissions. Even though this is less common, the impact can be much higher. We also considered physical attackers. Since this is a smart lock, individuals who have physical access to the door can attempt to tamper with the device, extract firmware, or interfere with hardware directly. The most common attack vectors include brute force login attempts, replay or relay attacks over Bluetooth or Wi Fi, manipulating firmware updates, and abusing cloud APIs. Looking at these attack paths helped us to decide where security controls were most needed. To organize these threats, we use the STRIDE framework, which helps categorize different types of attacks in a structured way. Spoofing refers to situations where an attacker impersonates a legitimate user or device, like a fake mobile app sending unlock commands, for example. Tampering involves unauthorized access to changes in firmware or command messages, which is especially dangerous because it can let attackers control the lock directly. Information disclosure includes leaked credentials or access logs, which could reveal when someone is or isn't home. Denial of service attacks can prevent users from unlocking their door when they need to, which is a major safety concern. Elevation of privileges happens when an attacker gains admin level access and can fully control the system. Using Stride helped us to clearly see which threats affected confidentiality, integrity, and availability, as well as which ones had real physical safety implications.
Next, we'll be going into key security challenges.
Thank you, Ryan. Hi, my name is Jose, and I'll be talking about key security challenges as well as risk prioritization rationale. The challenge of securing smart locks is that cybersecurity issues translate directly into a physical security risk. This isn't just about protecting data. An exposure here could lead to someone into your home. Another challenge is that even small weaknesses can have huge consequences. Something like a weak password policy or an insecure update process could be enough to compromise the entire system. Firmware updates are especially risky because they create a single point where many devices can be affected at once. If a malicious update is pushed, thousands of logs can be compromised simultaneously. There's also a constant trade-off between security, usability, and cost. Strong security controls can sometimes make systems less convenient or more expensive, but in this case, safety has to be the priority. These challenges are what drove the security architecture and risk mitigation decision into our design. For this project, we didn't treat all risks as equal. Instead, we prioritized them based on both impact and likelihood, with impact carrying more weight when physical safety was involved. Risks that could lead to unauthorized physical access, like authentication failures or malicious firmware, were ranked higher than the risks that only affected available data or analytics. Even if a risk had a lower probability, we'll still treat it seriously if the potential consequences were severe or widespread. Firmware issues are a good example of this because a single compromised update can affect many devices at once. This prioritization approach helped us focus our security efforts where they could be reduced with most risk, rather than spreading most controls evenly across less critical issues. Overall, it ensured that our mitigation, incident response, and recovery planning were aligned with the most important threats to user safety and system reliability. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. My name is Ryan Hamill, and I'll be going over the risk mitigation strategies for this slide. So when thinking about risk mitigation strategies, one of the first things that's very commonly used today is MFA or multi-factor authentication. It adds an extra step where the user has to input a code or a biometric scan, and this will help to significantly reduce the amount of times that people are able to falsely enter into accounts. So it's just an initial upfront way that can protect them. Another thing we can do is work with account lockouts. So we can temporarily block login attempts and if there's multiple failures. And the reason this is going to be important is specifically for brute force attacks when people are trying to just spam over and over with passwords to get through. This is a one way we can help to secure against that. Then we have secure boot and signed firmware. So this ensures that our device only trusts verified code. It's verified cryptographically, and the signatures will come up during the startup. And this will help prevent people from maliciously tampering with firmware or doing something to our smart lock device itself. Thirdly, this is more internally where we talk about monitoring and alerting so that we're up to date with things that are happening, not just in presence on the device, but in the network. So a good way to block or help to prioritize threats is to implement something like a SIM, a security information and event management tool, which will help to prioritize and allow our threat levels to change based upon what's happening. And then finally, really dealing with industry standards that are recognized globally, such as NIST and ISO. Companies that are able to align with these access controls are really able to show forefront work and security that is going to protect those devices. And it really is a way that they can be audited through third-party systems that can come in and say, hey, this company is following these access controls and they are preventing, redundancies and things from happening that shouldn't be occurring. When we talk about business continuity and recovery, the first thing that comes to mind is redundant cloud services. This way, you can make sure you have servers set up East Coast, West Coast, maybe in other countries as well. So if there is an outage, you can just switch it and keep things running without the whole system going down. Then we can encrypt our backups. So this will just protect stored backups, logs, and user settings, other things that could be important so that when you do need to do something to restore something, it can be safely restored and you don't have to redo all the settings. Just like encrypted backups was talking about, we have our disaster recovery testing. And this is really important because it comes down to preparing the company internally for threats by actually pretending they're happening, even if they're not. So doing, tabletop simulations, running, blue hat, red hat, and different kind of simulations inside your own team is done a lot to make sure that you're preparing for different eventualities because it's not if you're going to get attacked, in our tech world nowadays, it's when. So making sure that you're drilling constantly, I would say every quarter, at least every quarter to every, semi-annually, to make sure that you're prioritizing what's going to need to happen when these attacks do happen. And finally, the support escalation. Being able to categorize the threat of an attack, will be the difference in being able to fix something that is maybe a small problem that you can put off to the side while you're working on bigger tasks. And that way you just have an order and a ticket evaluation where everything can be tracked and changed and updated as it's needed.
Now for the business impact analysis. My name is Amari Revere, and let's get started. The system depends on three critical functions: secure authentication, accurate access logs, and trustworthy firmware updates. If any of these fail, the consequences are immediately physical, not just digital. A user could be locked out of their own home, or an attacker could suddenly gain entry if the firmware or access logs are compromised. A data breach also exposes personal data like access histories and location patterns. In the EU, for example, regulations like the GDPR qualifies this as protected information, which for the smart lock triggers immediate mandatory disclosures and potential penalties. We mapped our system to standards such as the NIST SP 853 and the ISO 27005, which outlines required controls like multi-factor authentication, account management, and firmware integrity checks. These frameworks define what reasonable security should look like for IoT devices. Because the lock directly affects user security, the system needs a fast recovery time. Our RTO is under 1 hour to prevent extended lockouts out of their homes, and our RPO is near zero because access laws are essential for investigations after any suspicious activity. Next slide. So, now talking about the legal and ethical considerations. From a legal standpoint, smart locks handle extremely sensitive data. This can include access logs, credentials, and behavior patterns. The GDPR classifies this again as all PII, personally identifiable information, meaning there's a legal obligation to secure and report any breaches. There's also a liability risk. If weak security leads to a successful break-in or someone gets hurt, the manufacturer could face lawsuits for negligence. Standards like the NIST AC2 and SI7 exist to help prevent that by defining minimum requirements for account security and software integrity. Ethically, the responsibility goes even further. A smart lock protects someone home, so any vulnerability translates into direct real-world harm and safety risk. That means we owe the users of the smart lock strong authentication, transparent data practices, secure firmware, and quick action when new threats appear. Failing to address these known vulnerabilities is not just bad engineering, it also violates users' trust and puts people at risk, which is the main selling point of a smart lock. The driving force is trust, and if you don't have trust, it won't work. Our goal is to go beyond compliance and design a system in a way that protects users' privacy, safety, and autonomy. With that being said, that's the complete analysis of our project. As you can see, the smart lock can carry a lot of risk, but with the right setup, encryption, and regulations and policies, you can mitigate and avoid most of the consequences so you can avoid the penalties. Thank you for watching our presentation, and goodbye.